We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Cross Street Chapel's Sunday service. I'm grateful for your presence here in person as well as those who are joining us online. I hope that whatever it is that you're seeking in this space, be it a space for tears and sorrow, for joy and laughter, perhaps you've come looking for a few words of wisdom, or just a chance to rest with the divine. Whatever it is that you've come seeking, I hope it will be found, as well as a warm community. I say there's two, as I've spoken before, two things for me that's very important in talking about the sort of welcome here, is that we come bearing ourselves, but we also come into a community. So I hope that whatever you're looking for, you find it. And in addition to that, you enter the sort of warmth and sacredness that we as a group have to offer. We continue with our worship. We had those wonderful words to light our chalice by, Marianne Moore. We turn now to some anonymous words. Beautiful little poem here. To this quiet place of beauty, we have come from workaday things, pausing for a while and waiting for the thought that quiet brings. And today we do look at silence and quietness. I've already had a fair bit of talking today. I don't know who was able to catch. I was on Radio Manchester this morning, and it was a joy to do it. But I'm aware then that there's a lot of words that I speak up here from the pulpit as well. So we'll have some time of quietness today as well. But first, let us turn to our first hymn in the Purple Book, number 21, Come and Find the Quiet Center. Shirley Arena Murray's hymn number 21.
Finding scope for faith become. space we gain. There's a place for deepest dreaming. There's a time for heart to care. In the Spirit's lively scheming, there is always room to spare.
Thank you. Let us turn now to a time of prayer. This is followed by our covenant, which you'll find printed in your order of worship and which will appear online for those watching from home. Thank you for the busyness as it wraps around our lives, helping give birth to who we are. Thank you for the times of quietness and contemplation, the still waters that reflect clearly our thoughts and passions. Thank you for the myriad joys we encounter, from bright skies, warm friendships, to the silent flower whose beauty is not marked by its size. Thank you for the times of trial and difficulty, and remind us, as Julian of Norwich has, that all shall be well. For though we are strong and have built many castles, we remain as fragile as the flower. Though we are as audacious as the sun, we are as well as tumultuous as the storms. Let our lives encompass the totality of our being, today and all days. Amen. And please read with me our covenant. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed and renew the world. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive each other and ourselves. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. Amen. I'll speak to this more in the announcements notices later on that we, of course, have our anniversary service coming up next week. And so I've been sort of delving into a bit more of the research into the history of the chapel and certain bits that even I hadn't realized or known at that time. 100 years ago, so this covenant that we recite every week, this covenant was developed by the congregation, I think about 5 or 6 or so years ago. And I know it's not to necessarily everyone's liking, and I appreciate maybe people don't always recite it, which is fine. But what struck me was reading that actually 100 years ago as well, they had a covenant which they shared, and people were invited to sign a covenant, actual sort of covenant roll, sort of booklets, which will be on display next week. But it makes very, very clear that one doesn't have to subscribe to the covenant. They don't have to sign on to it to be a member of the church, to participate in the life of the chapel. And I hope that is, of course, what you can feel as well, that even if these words are spoken every week, you don't have to feel obliged. You don't have to feel like you're putting your conscience on the line. That is, it's a hallmark of our church, and it has been part of our church for 350 years, the understanding that we hold different beliefs and different experiences, and that difference and diversity is a good thing. So that was just a little segue. But we turn now to our first reading, some thoughts on silence from Rufus Jones. Silence is one of the best preparations for communion with God and for the reception of inspiration and guidance. Silence itself, of course, has no magic. It may be sheer emptiness, absence of words or noise or music. It may be an occasion for slumber. But it may be an intensified pause, a vitalized hush, a creative quiet, an actual moment of mutual and reciprocal correspondence with God. The actual meeting of us with God and God with us is the very crown and culmination of what we can do with our human life here on earth. Words of Rufus Jones. And although this is a space of quietude and silence, we also have a point of sharing. So you are invited to come forward and share your lives, your joys and your sorrows, your trials and your triumphs. And if you want to share these publicly, please light a candle and come to the microphone so those who are listening online, those who are using the loop system may be able to hear and participate. If you are online, you can write on the chat box and I will read your message out. You're of course invited to light a candle in silence if you find the words too heavy. And as always, if you prefer to hold your life in your heart, know that your presence here is enough. So I'd like to light a candle of thankfulness and gratitude, just a general one, just because I'm feeling especially blessed this morning, especially grateful for all that I've encountered in life. So thank you.
I'm lighting this candle for Mike and May. Their son Robert took his own life and lost his fight with depression. And it's also for all the other young men who find themselves in this position, one of the greatest killers of our young men. Thank you.
I'm lighting this candle in gratitude to the to the Manchester Royal Infirmary, who've been a great have taken great care of me. Thank you. And of course, the members of my family who've also been wonderful.
And I am sending the light of this candle to all, everywhere, who have slightly scary diagnoses hanging over them.
For all those joys and sorrows here spoken, and those that remain silently in our hearts. Please join with me in singing our next hymn, number 148, Spirit of Life, hymn number 148. I now invite Peter to come forward with our second reading, which I will let him introduce.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as a gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mighty. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above this sceptred sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself, and earthly power doth then show likest gods, when mercy seasons justice. Though justice be thy plea, consider this, that in the course of justice, none of us should see salvation. We do pray for mercy, and that same prayer doth teach us all to render the deeds of mercy.
Thank you, Peter. Beautiful words from the Merchant of Venice. Let us return to a period of calm stillness with this meditation, A Calm, Clear Place by Jezebel Anat. Let us come into a calm, clear place where we can relinquish our clutter and relax from busyness into being. Let us settle into that calm, clear place, where the earth supports our bodies and the community lifts our spirits, where we can breathe in peace and center ourselves in love. Let us welcome our calm, clear place, where our hearts can expand, our thoughts can open beyond the cobwebs of convention into the creative flow of infinity. And so we enter into a calm, clear place, a period of silence for reflection, meditation, contemplation, and personal prayer. Thank you, Ruby. We come now to our next hymn in the Purple Book, number 150, Stillness Creeping Through This Place by Andrew Hill, hymn number 150.
Spirit moving through
There is a term used nowadays, 21st century lingo, to go along with the world of social media, the Twitters and the Facebooks and so forth. And the word and the term is doom scrolling. Is there anyone here who's familiar with doom scrolling? For those unaware, social media, Facebook and Twitter incorporate just a lot of sort of small posts that people write that share their lives, and this was, of course, seen to be a great, beautiful advent within the 21st century. Our capacity to share, some of the most profound and, certainly a lot of mundane moments in our lives. As I very much have perhaps shared a bit more of the mundane material, though I have had a few moments of profundity, I like to think. So doom scrolling has come about when people just find themselves almost seeking out negative and sort of challenging and things in these posts and these social media things. You can look up specific tags. You can look up things that sort of votes in Parliament that you're concerned about, and you can see all the comments, all and sundry, that people share across the world. And so doom scrolling is this just capacity to just look and look and look at every possible negative thing that's ever been written on the internet. And I can assure you there is a lot of stuff out there. I catch myself doom scrolling from time to time, usually as a bit of an act of procrastination when I have a lot on and I find myself burying my head in the sand that is my phone, lying in bed, with all darkness around me, and we've had some beautiful words on darkness and the great evocative silence, but without that sort of gleam of light coming from a phone telling me about how awful the world is, how terrible it is that we're suffering from climate change, or from people who don't think that it's happening, or how our democratic institutions are being eroded and supplanted with a fascistic world, and the people who think that that's a good thing. It's all out there, and if you know to look for it, and even if you just sort of subconsciously find it, you might be aware of just how debilitating that can be. I have lost probably many hours a night, not just from the actual act of doom scrolling, but from the consequence of it, when I finally set my phone aside and all those thoughts are still there, still lingering, still on my consciousness, and it takes a long time for them to dissolve into the beauty of the night. Once when I was doom scrolling, though, I came across a post that was hit just for me. It popped up and it said, do you want to doom scroll or do you want to take a walk? Just a nice walk in the country or the city, wherever you are, whatever time it is. And it sort of jolted me out of what I had been doing, and I felt a reception there. I felt the awareness of how debilitating and challenging it was, and hurtful for myself to be engaged in that. And so I attempted to sit with the silence then for a bit, which is normally fine for me. I know it's not for everyone, which is what I'm going to talk about next. Because there's another term in our 21st century we use, predates this millennium though, and that's the awkward silence. That's what we call silence very often, the awkward, the uncomfortable uneasiness of silence, especially when we're sat with others and we feel a social pressure to participate in some conversation that perhaps will make us look clever or creative or productive. The most awkward silence that I experienced was at university, in a class that started very early for first years who were experiencing the beginning of an independent life. The teacher was insistent that she would wait for a student to answer a question. Now, like I say, this was probably about 8 o'clock in the morning. It was at a music college. It was a humanities course, so it wasn't necessarily everyone's wheelhouse, especially for those who had perhaps spent the weekend in, shall we say, extracurricular activities in the evening. But she would wait. She would wait and wait and wait until someone offered her an answer to a question. And it eventually became a standoff. And I think she knew this because the questions became simpler and the answers were so obvious. But she would wait, and the students wouldn't say anything, and this could carry on for minutes, which might not sound like much, but believe me, if you're sat in a class with 30 other students, just waiting for someone to give what is the obvious answer. And of course you might ask why I didn't offer it, but there's that social pressure. So we were sat in this awkward silence. But what sticks out in my mind wasn't the awkwardness of the silence, but it was when a student finally stepped forward and offered the solution. Her response would be, "Aha! I knew I'd break one of you." Which is not a response that is particularly encouraging for the next silence, for the next period where we're going to sit and wait for someone to offer us, just to be insulted by the teacher. Like I say, I didn't answer. I tend to be okay with the silences, which I appreciate is not everyone's cup of tea. I've been in churches where the silence that is offered before the interlude lasts about 30 seconds. The organist, I think, just has a bit of an itchy finger, though I suppose they do know the congregation better than a visiting preacher would. And I sometimes wonder if I'm okay with silence because I have managed to cultivate organized periods of talking. I've stood up here with your blessing for 7, 8 years now, just been sometimes to have a bit of a good chin wag. And as I said at the start of the service, today has already involved a lot of talking. But silence is important. Abbot Christopher Jameson considers silence so fundamental to the spiritual life that he makes it the foundation of his cathedral. Before anything, before words, reflections, or incantations, first there is silence. In the beginning was the Word, Jim Riley writes in his hymn, but I seek quietness behind that start. Rufus Jones, the Quaker and writer who wrote our first reading, called silence the best preparation for the reception of inspiration and guidance, and called it an intensified pause and the means by which we commune with the divine, howsoever we define it. There's a story, possibly apocryphal, of Mother Teresa being interviewed. "What do you say when you pray?" she is asked. "Oh, I don't say anything, I just listen." Slightly exasperated, the interviewer then asks what God says to her in prayer. "God listens as well," is her response. And therein comes our awkward silence, especially when we're sat with others, that expectation and that pressure to contribute, to say something that will edify us, that will support us. But it's not always needed. When we light our candles, it is imperative that people know that their presence is enough. There's no obligation to come forward and to share words. There's no need to try and project a sense of cleverness, though you will all be clever in your ways. If you're not feeling it today, that's fine. You come as you are. We say that so often, but what we sometimes forget to say is not only do you come as you are, but you will be received as you are. You will be welcomed as you are. You will be celebrated as you are. Silence can be good. It can be refreshing. So I thought it would be appropriate to have one additional period of silence. We started our service proclaiming this place to be a quiet place of beauty, and I have no doubt that we honored the beauty of the place. But just for another point, let us honor the quietness too. A supportive quietness into which we can rest, where we can set aside what we want and receive what we need. Even if, again in the words of Rufus Jones, it is simply an occasion for slumber. Awkward silence, joyful silence, restorative silence, goofy silence, sexy silence, resilient silence, vulnerable silence, enjoyable silence, holy silence. Amen. A few notices before we sing our final hymn and close our worship. There's tea and coffee after the service, so please do join us for that. Do we have anyone to help with the tea and coffee today? Thank you, Alan and Richard. If you've just joined us, you can join our mailing list by writing to minister@crossstreetchapel.org.uk. You can contact me as well if you have any other concerns, for instance, pastoral concerns. And we're grateful for any contributions that can be made to the chapel. Financially, we have a retiring collection, along with envelopes for gift aid if you are a UK taxpayer, and if you're a regular giver to the chapel, we have an envelope scheme where you get an envelope for each week, so you don't have to constantly be re-entering your details. If you're online, you can donate at tinyurl.com/crossstreetdonate. You will have had in your order of worship a leaflet about our choir, and I believe, a text message asking me that I be a bit more specific, or that there be something very specific from our choir director, who does have a direct line to me. Sing for joy. So please do consider joining our choir, which is going to restart for the Anthems for Advent concert on Friday the 25th of November at 1 p.m. She wanted me to emphasize the no pressure music making. This is a choir for people who love to sing. And I know that there are many people who have grown up being told that you should mouth the words, by sort of errant and ignorant and hurtful choir teachers, but there is none of that here. Catherine is, as many know, an excellent musician and a wonderful teacher, and she just wants us to celebrate the joy in singing. So do join the choir, do consider that and let us know. We haven't set a specific day yet for rehearsals because we want to find out where people are with their schedules first. And as you'll note, of course, our Anthems for Advent concert, if you're not interested in singing but you want some good music, nevertheless, please come to our monthly recitals. November is the 25th, Friday at 1 p.m., and that's Anthems for Advent. We bring in a bunch of musicians who've performed with us and chapel members, and it's just absolutely a great collection of music. We're doing a collection for the Afro-Cats charity, which provides opportunities for asylum seekers. They meet here at the chapel, and they felt like a very worthy cause for us this year. Our Friday lunchtime recital will be this Friday, the 28th. I don't have the details to hand, but there are posters out in the concourse, so do check that out. I did say earlier that I'd be talking about the anniversary service, so that is Saturday the 29th at 1:30. Please RSVP if you haven't yet. Please do consider coming so we can make sure that we have enough seats set out and enough food ordered, because there's going to be an afternoon tea afterwards. So that's Saturday, next Saturday, it's coming up very quickly, 29th at 1:30. Now that means we will be having a Sunday worship at the regular time next week, but it's going to be a bit more low-key than our usual service because of all the energy that's going to be going into the anniversary service. Are there any announcements from the congregation? Oh, thank you. Yes, Faith in Life will be at 12:30 today. This is an opportunity to explore your lives in a sort of confidential and safe space, specifically to look at sort of the spiritual dimension of our lives and what we encounter and interpret from that. And it can be recent history, it can be sort of ancient history, but whatever it is, it's your story, and we're grateful for your sharing it in that space. That's led by William and myself, and that's at 12:30. Anything else that I might have forgotten? Let us then sing our final hymn, number 152, Thanks Be for These, Life's Holy Times, hymn number 152.
and rejoice our trust declare. Press all our faith into our faith. Bless now the destiny we share.
Thank you, Rudy, for the music. Thank you, Sonia, for the flowers, and Robin and Sonia for helping to set up. Thank you to Adam for greeting, to Alan and Richard for the tea and coffee that we are about to enjoy, and to William for the IT. And thank you to all of you for creating and sharing worship today. Oh, and Peter for the reading. And to all of you for creating and sharing worship today. We close with the words of Geber Kareki. May these moments of quiet renew in us the sense of joy, recreate in us the spirit of peace, revive in us the zeal of service. May we be sincere in thought, wise in speaking, courageous in deed, and ready to serve. Amen.
Thank you for reading it. Thank you. Thank you.